Hi friends, look what just arrived in the mail. I'm surprised it didn't come in a box labeled heavy because she is a thick one, but this is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series. I believe there are 4 books out and the series is not quite complete yet, but this is the first one. This is about Johnny and Shannon, and this book has been all the rage right now. Everyone's been talking about it, so I'm really excited to do a reading vlog, reading this book and seeing my journey through it. I'm not going to be sharing any spoilers just in case it is a life-changing book. I want you to experience it for yourself. So no spoilers, only some thoughts peppered in throughout. Not too many because it is a long book and I don't want this vlog to be too long. So I'll probably share some updates, a third, 2/3, and then at the end of the book. And I'm also going to be trying to annotate and highlight a little bit, but very light. Only a few quotes here and there, maybe some key events in the book, especially because it's my first time reading it. It's probably only going to be light annotation. So thanks for watching with me, and let's go find out what all the hype is about. Hi friends, I'm a little over a third of the way through, so I wanted to give an update on Binding 13. I don't even think I told you what it was about, but it's basically about Johnny and Shannon, and it's set in the teenage years. He's 17, she's 15, and they both attend Tommen College, which is like this private school in Ireland, and it's a rugby school as well, which is what Johnny plays. He's like set to become a professional rugby player if he can stay focused and just stay on track and not get distracted by anything. And then Shannon, on the other hand, has a totally different life. She comes from a totally different background. Her family is not well off. She actually has a lot of family struggles and a really hard family life. And she's also been bullied her entire life. So she kind of comes to Tommen College as a way to start fresh and start somewhere new and hopefully escape all of that bullying. So far, I would say the book is interesting and I am very intrigued. I don't know one way or the other how it's really gonna go, but I know that I am interested to read it. And it's also very much a slow burn. I mean, I'm like more than a third of the way through and they've only had like a couple of interactions, but I do feel like there have been a lot of developments and there's still a lot of story that has happened. So even though they haven't interacted a ton, there's still so much being developed in the background with both characters and how they're thinking about each other and their interactions. So definitely interested. If what I've read so far was like a first date, I would say I would definitely be interested in the second date. Like, I'm definitely intrigued. So I am going to keep reading. I do find it very interesting. And it's also making me feel so nostalgic. It's like taking me back to high school when you have like your first proper like real hardcore crush and you're like mesmerized by the person and you can't like think and you can't study and you're just like, what are all these feelings? Like, you've never felt them before like that intensely. So it's super nostalgic. I love it for that reason alone. I'm finding it really easy to read as well. The author writes in a really interesting way and a really easy way, I would say, because there's also a lot of dialogue, and then she uses a lot of sentence breaks and paragraph breaks. So the pages actually fly by, even though this is quite a hefty book. But I am flying through it and I'm very intrigued. So let's see what happens from here on out. friends, hi! I am now 2/3 of the way through, so I wanted to give another reading update on Binding 13. I now have so many thoughts. Oh my goodness, the thoughts. I don't even know where to start, but wow. Okay, this book is intense. It is extremely real and raw, and it's not fluffy. So don't go into this thinking that you are going to have a very fluffy read, or that even it's just an easy breezy kind of jump into romance, teenage love, all that kind of stuff. That is not this book. This book, like I said, is very raw, it's very real, and there's a lot of triggers. I would definitely recommend looking those up if you think about reading this book, because there's a ton of them, and I even actually find it hard to read some parts because of how terrible some of the things that are going on in this book and that they're experiencing, and I've actually gotten quite emotional and teary-eyed even in some parts, so definitely be forewarned about that. But I will say I am so invested in Johnny and Shannon. These two characters are like taking a piece of my heart, and I feel for both of them. Both of them individually are going through so many things, and they have so much pressure on them. You wouldn't even think they are teenagers because of everything that's going on. But the cute part is that when they're together and they interact with each other, I think they allow themselves to be a little bit of, you know, that teenage kind of cutesy, being childlike, whereas in their kind of separate real lives, they're dealing with some really intense, serious things. So I do like it. I am enthralled. I am in this world. I am head first into it. And the other thing is that it is also very much a slow burn. When they say slow burn, they are not lying. I mean, settle in, get some snacks, like really sit down, because this is a long journey. This is not something that's quick and insta, and they don't meet right away and fall in love and all the things. Like, it's a very slow developing story, but there is still so much happening, so you're not bored by any means. Like, the story is progressing, there's stuff happening, the plot is going places, these characters are going places, but it is a slow burn as far as the romance is concerned. And I wouldn't even classify this book first and foremost as a romance, because that's not even like the most driving factor, even though it's a big part of it. And I know the book classifies itself as a romance, but there's so much going on otherwise as well. And I think one of the other things I really like as well is that most of the times when authors or there's written works about teenage love, it's almost always described as like lust driven, it's quick, there's not much thought going into it, whereas this is not that. It's like almost like adult in some forms with the way they're approaching it and how slowly they're developing with it and how they're thinking about it. But then, like I said, when they're with each other, it's almost like they allow each other to be teenagers and have some of that cute childlike stuff, because some of their interactions you can tell their age and you're like, okay, yeah, this is your first kind of crush and love. And some of those interactions, you know, with all that like teenage angst and all the things that come with having like a first crush and a first love, but it generally doesn't read like a teenage love story. So I love that aspect of it. I just love how complex and intricate and layered it is, and I just could not put it down last night. If it wasn't for my day job right now, I wouldn't have gone to sleep last night and I would have finished it. So I'm very excited to keep reading, but yes, not fluffy, not for the faint of heart, very slow burn, very interesting world, and I'm liking it so far. So let's keep reading and see how this bad boy ends. Alrighty guys, I wanted to give my closing thoughts on Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. So I did finish this a couple of days ago, but I needed a few days to sit with it, and not because I was confused about how I felt about it, but because I was in all of my feelings, every single one, and I just had to be in it. And I felt like I was in like a book hangover because that's how impacted I was. So let's get the basics out of the way. 5 stars, absolutely, 1000%. I believe the hype now and then some, because I was completely enthralled in this world. I buy it, I buy it, I buy it. I think it was incredible, but here's what I'm gonna say, just hear me out. In my personal opinion, I don't think this book is for everybody. It's not a little black dress. It's not for everybody. And the reason I say that is because it is very raw and intense, and it has a lot of triggers. And when I say it talks about triggers, they're not just mentioned, like they really hit on those triggers. It goes intense, it goes deep, it gives a lot of details. It's a lot going on, and like I said before, some parts were even really difficult for me to read, and I found myself being really teary-eyed at certain points. And I thankfully, you know, haven't been through the things that these characters have been through, but even still, I was so impacted, as if it was like happening to me. That's how real it felt, and that's how Chloe Walsh's writing is in this. So if any of those things scare you, and if any of those things trigger you, or anything about what I just said doesn't sound great, then don't pick up the book. I wouldn't recommend it for you, because it is all those things and more, and it really is that intense. But I loved it so much that I was barely done reading the last sentence, and I hauled ass over to my Amazon cart, dropped the next 3 books in there, and I was like, how quickly can it get here? Because I need to read more, and I need to consume more about these characters. I am so invested in their story, in their journey, what's happening to them. And then it also left off on a cliffhanger. So just for that fact alone, I'm like, let's just keep going. Let's keep going on this journey. And like I said, also a very slow burn. Buckle up, get some snacks. You really need to have some patience and see where this story takes you. But there is a lot of story, like I said, you know, there's a lot happening. So it's not this thick for no reason. I think every single page was part of the book, and it should have been a part of the book. It adds to the story, it adds to the characters, and everything that you're learning. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, please pick it up immediately. Drop your TBR, get to this now if that didn't scare you, and if you are prepared to go into something really emotional like that. But I loved it so much. Thank you for watching my journey reading it this week. You will be seeing more content around this world, because I love the Boys of Tommen and I love this series. Thank you, Chloe Walsh, for putting this out into the universe. I'm so glad I read it. Thank you for watching. Comment down below if you've read it or you plan to read it, and I will catch you next time.